Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Simic Bailey. I run the travel blog and YouTube channel, Valerie in Belize, which focuses on Alaska travel and travel in the American West. And I am so excited to be back in front of you as part of my 2025 Alaska seminar series. So if you're not familiar with these videos, this is a series. You are watching one of the videos in the series. And if you want to visit Alaska in 2025 or the future, you should go check out the other destinations that I've done videos with, because each video is dedicated to a different destination, and this video is all about Juneau. And I'm so excited. I have Kristi with me. This is our third time's the charm, finally getting this recorded. And that leads me into a quick bit of housekeeping, which is that this has been pre-recorded. The questions that you will see answered later in the video were submitted in advance by my community. If you have a question while watching this video, that does not mean you are left out. Just go down into the comments, leave your question there, and I will keep an eye on them. And if I cannot answer that question myself, I will make sure that Kristi or someone on her team at Travel Juneau jumps in to kind of make sure you get whatever information that you need. I think that just about covers the housekeeping. So I'm going to get out of the way and let Kristi take over. Thank you so much for joining me, Kristi. Tell us all about Juneau.
Hi, I'm Kristi Switzer. I'm with Travel Juneau in Juneau, Alaska, and I'm the Destination Marketing Manager. And Travel Juneau is tasked with promoting Juneau, Alaska to independent visitors. So we're super excited about the 2025 season and looking forward to welcoming some of you back, and some of you will be coming for your first time. So here's sort of a little get acquainted information that might be helpful for you. The first thing that you need to know is that you can order the official Juneau travel planner. It's free for residents of the U.S. and Canada. Those are the only places we ship currently, but it's also available online. And the beautiful planner you see to the left there is going to be at the printer in probably 2 or 3 weeks. So it'll be going out in the mail in January. So you can order a print copy by mail, and as soon as it's up and running, you'll be able to see it virtually at the link that's included on the slide there. That has all the information for our partners. It gives you some background, some history, some trivia, also kind of details out what some of the top itineraries are for Juneau, and that's kind of split up by category of things that you might be interested in, like family, or maybe you're just all about the glaciers, or maybe you're into hiking. We have itineraries for those things, and we'll be adding more to the website in the near future. So that's a good place to get started when you're planning a trip to Juneau. The basic information that you need to know is that there's only 2 ways to get here, and that's by airplane. Alaska Airlines flies daily out of Seattle, direct 2-hour flight, or you can fly Delta Airlines. It's usually June through August. So those flights are available. And then, of course, the ferry system comes up occasionally. It's like once a week, something like that. So, or you can come down if you fly into Anchorage and you do that whole area up there and then drive down to Haines or Skagway. You can take a day ferry and just shoot on over to Juneau for a few days and enjoy yourself here, and then head back up and grab your car. So, or fly home, whatever works for what works best for you. The key is flexibility. This is information that you'll need to know if you're an independent visitor, and that's that there's such a breadth and depth of things that are available to do in Juneau that you should plan for a minimum of 3 days, up to 6 days for doing and hitting all of the highlights for the things that you'd like to do. That also gives you some playtime in there in case you get weathered out. Sometimes, if we have high winds and rough seas, then there may be a small chance that you won't be able to make that whale watching trip today, but maybe you can go tomorrow. Or if an airplane can't fly due to weather, then you have, so I recommend planning those trips, those types of trips that could be weather dependent. I would book those at the very beginning of your trip, and that way you have extra time and extra days to be able to try and get back out there when the weather clears up, which it usually does pretty quick. And then my pro tip for today is to rent a car. And the reason being is that we have one 45-mile road. And why wouldn't you want to go to the end of the one 45-mile road we have? Because there are actually a lot of things that you'll never see past Auk Bay if you come in on a cruise. So you want to be able to have that rental car to be able to drive out to the end of the road. You can stop at so many wonderful places, and we'll talk about some of those. But also just kind of a hidden gem of Juneau is if you go all the way to the very end and park your car, you can take a short hike down to Berners Bay from the very end of the road there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful vista, and it's a great place to have a picnic or just, do a little bit more hiking, beach combing, that kind of thing can be done there. It's just very, very natural and out in the wilderness. So it's about as far as in the wilderness as you can get here. And then cruise visitors, there are also things for you to know, and that's that you need to plan your time wisely. Many of the cruise lines, depends on when they come in. Sometimes they come in at noon and leave at 8. Other ones come in at 8 a.m. and leave at 2 p.m. So you have a kind of a finite amount of time here, and you certainly don't want to miss your boat. So many of the cruise lines were selling out in 2024, and it sounds like many of them are selling out for 2025. And then another thing that's really important for you to know, and you may hear otherwise, but the vast majority of all of the businesses in downtown Juneau are locally owned. Now, you'll see a couple, if familiar to you, if you're used to cruising, in the islands or someplace like that, there'll be some jewelry stores that you might recognize. But for the vast majority of the stores downtown, they're all locally owned by people who have children in school and have to pay for dance classes. And, they make the bulk of their income in the summertime. And so it's, we love it when you come in. They're always so happy to see you. And they will do their very best to accommodate whatever needs you may have and ship gifts for you, etc. And the biggest pro tip I can give cruisers is that you need to bring a real raincoat. I know oftentimes there are umbrellas available to you, and sometimes people will pick up one of those little plastic ponchos like you get at Disney World. But those really don't help a lot here when it rains. It's generally a light mist, but it can be stronger than that, and it can be windy. So if you're wearing something or using something that's not fully covering your body, it's possible that you might get wet. And it's a little cooler up here. For us, an average summer day may be in the mid 60s. So for some people, that's pretty chilly, and they're used to wearing coats. So that's just a pro tip. Make sure you bring a real raincoat. If you're going to be out on the trails, you'll want to bring waterproof hiking boots. So what is there to do in Juneau? And it's so funny because we take a lot of phone calls all summer long and actually all year long into our offices asking about what types of things there are to do in Juneau. And it's so interesting to me because we have so much of what you would ever want to see and do in Juneau, with the exception of like Denali. And if it's cloudy, obviously you're not going to see the northern lights, but we have a little bit of everything. We've got a very strong Alaska Native culture here with the Sea Alaska Heritage Center and the Gold Belt Foundation, Tlingit and Haida. So the Native corporations have really enhanced a lot of the visitor experience to Juneau. We have the Kutia Dae, which is the totem pole trail that lines the waterfront. That's fascinating. They've got informational signs that you can see and understand what those totem poles signify. And it's just kind of a fun thing to do, to be able to, if the weather's nice, it's a great little walk down to Bill Overstreet Park and see the gigantic life-size breaching whale statue. And a lot of people like to, do their arms like the whale. We call it whale yoga. And they like to post those on Instagram and whatnot. So there's certainly a safe place to be able to take some selfies there. Obviously, whale watching is really big here. Wildlife viewing of most kinds is available through Juneau. There are a large number of whale watching boats and several fleets here. So if you want to go out whale watching, there's definitely the place to do it. Over on Admiralty Island, there is brown bear viewing. And so when the fish are running out there, you can fly out there with a guide and they will take you, and the bears are habituated to sort of seeing humans around, and you just watch quietly as they go fishing and teach their young to fish also in the streams over there. You may just be walking in downtown Juneau and see a black bear. So my advice to you is please don't chase them down, don't corner them. We've had some people do that. I just know it's a recipe for disaster. So, just give them their space. This is a wild place where we live. And so you want to just make sure you're giving the wildlife definite space so that they can continue being who they are. And you might see porcupines out on the trail. We have, of course, bald eagles everywhere. In particular, if you go down to any of the salmon spawning streams, then you'll be able to see both bald eagles and potentially black bear, which is the one bear that we have here. Sometimes there are brown bears out the road, but for the most part, black bears are the ones that you'll get to see. And any of our folks at the visitor center can give you some tips and tricks on where to go and do that, as well as in the planning guide, the travel planner that you can order. There are some tips and tricks on where to find the wildlife here in town too from locals. You, of course, if you're into history at all, Gold Rush history is big here. This town, of course, the Alaska Natives have been here since time immemorial, but they helped Joe Juneau and Richard Harris found the town here and extract gold. And so there are like 150 gold mines in the local area. So there's a lot of history, a lot of ruins over on Douglas Island back from the Treadwell mine era. So we've got lots of tours available for Gold Rush history. We've got city walking tours. We've got food tours. Those are walking tours also because our downtown is fairly compact. So you can try and experiment with different types of foods that might be interesting. Maybe you've never had before. They've got everything from halibut ceviche to smoked salmon and even salmon roe on the tour. And it's just a lot of really good bites and some tasty drinks too, because we have award-winning food as well as beverages in this town. We have 4 breweries, 2 distilleries, and 1 kombucha place. So it's a lot to enjoy. You won't be hungry or thirsty here. And of course, glacier viewing, the Mendenhall Glacier is like the #1 attraction. So you can go see that, or there are 38 glaciers in this area, and there's a lot of different ways to go see those. And that could be taking a day trip up to Tracy Arm if you're an independent visitor. That's something you can only do if you're independent, or to Glacier Bay, which is wonderful also for whale sightings and sea otters and puffins and eagles and sea lions and all of the things. So you can see those on those types of trips. Then there are also lots of flight seeing opportunities. You can fly up on top of a glacier and go dog sledding. You can fly on top of a glacier and go walking around with a guide. You can go glacier trekking and actually trek with ice spikes and axes across a glacier or up a wall of a glacier. You can also, canoe or pack raft to the glaciers. You can take a flight seeing trip in a float plane and fly up the Taku Inlet, fly over 5 glaciers, and then when you land, you can have lunch, a beautiful salmon bake at the 100-year-old lodge up there, Taku Glacier Lodge, and that's an amazing place to go and spend a day, especially when you get some beautiful weather or just some hanging clouds. It's one of my favorite places. And then, of course, we have something new this year, the cooking classes. We have Breathe Alaska, which offers a wellness tour with healthy food, as well as a hike and some mindfulness exercises and some breath work. Hiking and biking, gosh, you guys, we have 250 miles of hiking trails, which is more than we have of roads. Mentioned the 45-mile road. Well, there are, of course, some little ancillary roads, but it's still not as many as we have hiking trails, and we're big hikers here. So you just ask any local where their local hiking trail is that they enjoy going on, and I'm sure they'd be glad to explain how to get there and what you might need. Make sure you're well prepared for that. We have great museums. Our Alaska State Museum is world class. Our city museum has a lot of the, of course, city history of Juneau and the mining era, as well as our Alaska Native history. And then there's even a doll museum here. I have not actually been to that, but it's on my list to accomplish this coming summer. So it's actually a working studio, and there are a lot of Alaska Native dolls in there, as well as a variety of others. It's a huge collection. And of course, if you don't see something on the list that you like, which would be hard to do, but if you're here for 6 days, that could happen maybe. You can have a custom tour, and you can just call up one of our companies that does custom tours and tell them what you're interested in, and they will give you a personalized tour and set something up for you to be able to see all the things and do all the things that are interesting for you. So we also have the Mount Roberts Tramway. Well, I guess it's Gold Belt Tram now. It's right downtown. It's right by the cruise ship docks, and you can go up to the top. It's 1,800 feet. And then you go to the top of the tram, and there is a lot of, sometimes they're carving totem poles. Other times they have other types of artists in residence. You can hike. There are lots of trails, lots of totems up there. And you can hike to the very top of the Mount Roberts, and it's just an incredible view, especially on a nice day. And even if it's not, it's a beautiful place to be in the clouds too. So it's just a magical area, and there are so many wonderful things to do. So I know I go on and on about it, but that's kind of my job, isn't it? A little bit. And I love living here, and all of these things are so much fun, and we have a little something for everybody. So new for 2025 is we have a Treadwell, Alaska's Lost Mine, and that's a tour of the Treadwell mine area, which was open from 1882, I think, to 1922, when one of the mines caved in over there. And so it's sort of, you wander through with a guide past all of these ruins and old buildings and stamp mills and old equipment and rails and rail cars throughout this whole area. And then it's augmented reality. So they actually provide you with iPad, and you can hold it up at certain spots. And so you can see the real life thing, and then it will show you in augmented reality what it was like when it was either a full building or when there were people there in the plaza, or there's a really cool section of it where you're looking at an old store, an old country store there, and there are lots of little Easter eggs for you to find if that's kind of your thing. Gamers might really appreciate that. And then we move on to the Wild Alaska Seafood Cooking classes at the Jorgensen House. They have world-class chefs there that will teach you how to best prepare Alaska seafood, hands-on cooking. They've got a beautiful facility with a gorgeous view and some terrific chefs that work there. And I think that that's something, if you have ever done cooking classes other places, then I think that you'll really enjoy this. And it's always, you think you know how to cook something, and then you go to a cooking class, you pick up on some of those tips that really makes the fish that you're going to catch and you take home, or the fish that you have sent to you, to be able to cook that for your friends and family is a real special treat. So it's a bit of knowledge that you can take with you of your time in Alaska as part of your memory, and continue to utilize that. Breathe Alaska, I mentioned this before, is a personalized tour with breathwork and going out. Generally, sometimes they go out to Ockrek, sometimes they go out to the Rainforest Trail over on Douglas Island, which has an amazing view on the way of the Mendenhall Glacier from across the channel. So that's something that's new. So if that's your thing, breathwork, you really want to, I actually took this tour because I was unfamiliar with it, the type of tour it was. And it was so interesting because I think, even though I've been here since 1990, it was probably, I was more present being in Alaska and being in touch with all of the noise and the feelings and the smells and the sounds of what it's like here on a beach in Alaska, listening to eagles and the water lap the shores, and all of these things, the wind blow through the trees. It's just really a spectacular way to kind of connect with the land and recenter yourself. And then, of course, I mentioned the Gold Belt Tram. There's also a combo that they'll do where you can go up the tram, but there's a tour that's an add-on to that, where the Alaska Native will take you on a tour and cover some of the gold rush history, but mostly the lore told from the Alaska Native perspective, which I encourage everybody to kind of look into. I mean, this is a place where they have lived and fished and raised their families for tens of thousands of years. And so it's a really unique opportunity to hear about life from their perspective and how the geography here also impacts some of their culture and tradition. So coming up in 2025, we've got the 50th Alaska Folk Festival. If you love folk music, this is the place to be for an entire week. There is pop-up music everywhere in all of the bars, out on the streets, in private houses, but most specifically as part of the official part of the festival down at Centennial Hall. And there are 15-minute sets, people from all over, and it's usually, there are some songwriting workshops as well, and some musician workshops. So there's a little something for everybody if that's your thing. In August, we have a triathlon. So if you're one of those folks that likes to swim and bike and run, there are 3 different lengths, I guess, of the triathlon. And there is the Olympic, the long distance, and then the sprint, which is the shorter distance of each of those legs. And that's kind of a big deal. It's growing. We have a lot of people come in from outside, and they just do a really remarkable job putting that together. It's a local running group. They've been doing it for years, and it's pretty spectacular. We also have, I mentioned before, the Kutia Dae, and that's the Totem Pole Trail. There are 4 new Kutia or totems in the process of being developed for the trail. The trail will eventually have 30 totem poles in it. We have 12 currently, and there are 4 in process. So we're almost a little more than halfway through. I'm hoping they'll go up this summer. Not really sure yet. I don't have an update on that, but it's really, if you have an opportunity to see the totem pole raising, it's an exciting and celebrated time when we raise the totem poles here. And then, of course, we did a ton of trail improvements, between some of the natural way that things develop in nature. Sometimes we have to do improvements to make sure that some of the hiking trails are kept safe for folks that like to hike those, which would be all of us. And we have so many of those. We have folks that are working on them pretty much all year. So we've done a lot of improvements, added some new bridges. We've put in a new mountain bike trail. And so there's just a lot for different people to do that are into those kind of things. They're short, they're long, they're easy, they're really hard and arduous. There's everything in between. So there's a little something for whatever it is that you like to do. Just make sure you're well prepared and read up on those trails in advance. And also new in 2025, actually it was new this year, but just sort of part of the year. But next year, we're super excited that the Cultural Ambassador Program is out there at the Mendenhall Glacier Recreation Area and is working with the Forest Service to have Alaska Natives on site to be able to discuss their culture and their relationship to the land out there at the glacier, because many of the folks that live here, the Tlingit, the Haida, and the Tsimshian from this area have a very personal experience and history with the glaciers of the area. And so it's a really cool opportunity to be able to sit down and ask any question you ever want to know. They want to hear your questions. So if you are curious at all, this is a great place to do it. It's free. They're just around, and you're welcome to approach them and ask them any questions that you may have. And there are also sometimes people set up on the inside of the visitor center so that you can ask them questions there at a booth. And sometimes they're working on crafts and things. So it's really kind of a super cool opportunity, and it's an exciting thing to be able to offer visitors. And I just threw in some little trivia for everybody. We are a population of about 32,000 people, and we are a maritime mountain community. A lot of people will ask, what's the elevation here in Juneau? Well, it's really kind of funny. It makes it feel, with all these gigantic mountains, it makes it feel like you might be at elevation, but truly at the time that this is being asked, we're usually right at water level. So we're at sea level, and then of course we go up much higher than that. And let's see, we are a welcoming city. We have a perfect score from the Human Rights Commission Equality Index, and we have for the last 3 years. So know that if you are coming here, that you are safe and welcome, and we're happy to have you. We have a city-owned ski area. So for those of you skiers and boarders, you can fly up here or you can ferry in, and you can take your boarding pass right up to the ski area, and you can ski for free the day you arrive. And then the tickets, of course, we have no lines, and there's plenty of parking, and it's only 15 minutes from downtown. So there are a lot of opportunities to just really kind of maximize your time up at the ski area. And there's 640 acres of skiable terrain, and a 1,640-foot drop, and varying levels of difficulty for skiing. So, if you're into skiing at all, I would highly encourage you to come up here. Sure beats spending 3 hours, in a car waiting in line just so you can get in line to go up the lift, so you can get in line to be able to ski down safely. So we're only 2 hours direct from Seattle, and you can ski free your first day. So go ahead and book that early flight. And then let's see, Juneau is the largest capital city in the United States. We're the second largest city in the United States, but the largest capital city. We have over 3,000 square miles of area. A lot of that is water and ice fields and mountains. And, we only have 14 square miles of urban terrain, where we all sort of live and play and work. And we've been the capital since 1906, even though we weren't really a state. It was the territorial capital. And then post-statehood, we've been the capital since then. So when you see our capital, which is accessible downtown, you can walk to it, and there are free tours Monday through Friday, self-guided audio tours. And when you see our capital, you'll notice it doesn't have a dome on it. That's because it was the territorial capital. It wasn't actually a state capital when it was built. So that's just a little bit of trivia for you. And for those birders out there, we have loads of birds, over 350 different kinds of birds up here in the local area. And we are part of the Audubon Society's Southeast Alaska Birding Trail. So if that's on your bucket list to tick off a number of birds, we can certainly help with that too. Some of the other highlights of living here, it's funny, a lot of people will ask us, what do you do all winter long? Well, oh my gosh, what don't we do? We do all of the same things we used to do. Sometimes we just wear snowshoes doing them, or skis or whatnot. But there's also just so much else that we offer. We have 3 professional theaters. We've got dance companies. We've got an opera company. We have a symphony that does a series of concerts. We have a Juneau Jazz and Classics Festival. Of course, the Folk Fest, which I mentioned already, and the Ak Rock Indigenous Music Festival. That will be coming back at some point. I don't have dates on that yet or confirmation, but I know it's coming in some way, shape, or form. And then, of course, we have all the arts. We have tons of art galleries. We have tons of artists here in town, lots of very talented people, lots of very musical people as well. And that sort of culminates in this really grand week in December. If you are looking for some place and you don't want to go all the way to Germany for a festival or something like that, you can always just come up to Juneau, because we have the public market, which starts after Thanksgiving, and there are artisans from all over Alaska, in particular in Southeast, and the theme has always been, this is their 50th year or 51st year of doing this, and the theme has always been nowhere but the public market. So that's kind of one of the things that they look at when they're bringing in artisans are, these are people who are bringing in things that they make or services that they do that are found nowhere else. So a lot of unique gift giving can be purchased that weekend. And it's also a place to see and be seen and just get in the spirit of the season and see your neighbors and your friends. And there's some people, the only time I see them is every year at the public market. So, it's great for bumping into people, for those folks that live here. And I think that you'll really enjoy being a part of the community during that. Following that next week, there's all sorts of activities in the downtown area, and that culminates then the first weekend of December with the Gallery Walk, which is another special event where people gather downtown, and because there are so many galleries and gift stores, and even the gift stores carry art, and walk to all of the different galleries, and there are often food and cookies and various and sundry snacks and things. And of course, it's again another one of those things where you run into people you know, but you get an opportunity to meet a lot of the artisans, and might be painters, might be potters, ceramicists, is that a word, that make ceramics. And so there are just a lot of opportunities to get some unique gifts and to get some personalized gifts. That's kind of a special week, and we pretty much clear our calendars to go do all those things. Yes, insider tips and recommendations. And there are some that I haven't put on here, but if you go to the visitor center, or if you call our offices and ask us where things like the best deep fried halibut is, then locals will be happy to share their best deep fried halibut eating place in town, or their favorite place to get smoked salmon dip, or to buy smoked salmon to take. So those are things that you can learn too. But there are some real gems of Juneau, and I think that two of those that stand out to me when I'm talking with people that have visited and that I've recommended things to is the Walter Soboleff building, which is part of the Sea Alaska Arts Campus, Sea Alaska Heritage Arts Campus, and it has a full-size clan house housed within that building, and it was hand done, and there are over 1 million ads marks on the inside of that, and it's a great way to kind of see what those clan houses were like, what it was like to, what the size of them was, get a sense of that scale, to learn how it was used and how people were housed for many, many hundreds and hundreds of years. And there are still some that exist in various areas. The Alaska State Museum has a fantastic exhibit on Alaska Native history, and that's definitely worth seeing. They've also got a lot of information on lots of other Alaska Native groups throughout Alaska, as well as some really phenomenal, if you're into like advertising at all, they had a section where it was just like canned salmon art, or there's information on just mining and fishing, which are two of the larger industries over the years here. So it's, you'll definitely learn something there for sure. Popular hiking, if you're a hiker, Perseverance Trail downtown is accessible, even from the cruise ship docks. You can just walk up to the top of Basin Road and hike Perseverance Trail back into the Silver Bow Basin. Treadwell, which is the mining trail in the mining ruins that I mentioned over on Douglas Island. You would need to either have a rental car, or be able to take a cab, or have a friend drop you off. East and West Glacier trails, those are on either side of the glacier, each with different benefits and views from there, depending on what you're looking for. And then Brotherhood Bridge is a relatively flat trail, and it's a bridge along our main road where you have a wonderful, spectacular view of the Mendenhall Glacier, and in front of it will just be, usually July, I believe. It's just swaths of the bright pink fireweed flowers, and it's just a really stunning location, and you can go walk amongst those and walk along the river there. And then Bridget Cove is out the road, and that's a lot of birders like that trail as well. There also can be bear activity in that area, so you'll want to just make sure that you're bear aware. In the wintertime, we have fireside lectures every Friday at the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center, and it has run everything from scientists explaining about how fish imprint, or salmon when they imprint on their particular river, or it might be something along the lines of something in the Tongass National Forest. So there's just always lots of education ongoing that we're always rabid to sit down and soak up. The best sunset spot, if you're really into sunsets, some people are. I personally feel like in the summertime is North Douglas or at Lena Beach. Local black bears, we have a lot of them. And if you're out here in April or May and the dandelions are blooming, then make sure you drive out the road. Make sure somebody's paying attention to the road, and you will see them along the side of the road eating the dandelions. And then, of course, later on in the season, when there are salmon coming into the local streams, then you may spot them also at the mouths of those streams, getting the salmon as they come in because they're fattening up for the winter. Eagles, pretty much any stream where salmon are spawning, and that includes Diepack, which is our local hatchery. Interesting aside, there are no fish farming allowed. It's actually in our constitution, so no fish farming, but we do have hatcheries that kind of helps keep the balance good for our fishermen and our locals that subsistence fish, along with just being able to ensure the future generations of salmon are coming so that we can fish. We love to fish. And the best picnic spot, probably be some people that might argue with me, but I personally think it's Eagle Beach. It's fairly flat. If you have children, it's a great place to let them run with all of the there's just at low tide, lots of sand that stretches out as far almost as the eye can see, and a beautiful view of the Chilkat mountain range. So it's, for me, one of my favorite places. And if you're lucky and you're there in June or late May, early July sometimes, you can sometimes come across wild beach strawberries. So that's a little something that could be a tasty little dessert. So that's really all I have. So, we say here, Gunochi Shawa. That means thank you. And I'm open to questions.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Kristi. So while you're getting the slides put away so we can chat, perfect. That was easy. I was going to share a little story to give you some time to do that.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so my story is, and it's relating to the city ski area. So my husband and I, well, our family, we had our little one with us, baby V. We did an Alaska cruise in September of 2024, and we were waiting for our whale watching and lighthouse tour to begin. And so we were walking along the Totem Trail, which is right along where the cruise ships can dock right near downtown. And there was a young man selling cookies out of a basket. And he was just walking up and down. He was talking to the other vendors. He was talking to any guests who would basically stop. And so I stopped. And he was very fortunate because he was selling cookies. This is where the ski area comes in. He was selling cookies to raise money to buy skis to practice downhill skiing, I was just wildly impressed with this young person who was being very entrepreneurial and taking very good advantage of the market opportunity when a cruise ship was in town. But he got an even better deal because I only had $20 bills. So I kept to give him a 20, and we got 2 cookies, and they were incredible. So if you are watching this video and you are going to be in Juneau and you see a young person selling cookies, try the cookies. You go for it. They were so good. I actually was just sharing about them on social media because every time I see the picture, I'm like, I should have given him more money and gotten more cookies. I don't know if his mom or grandma recipe. I have no idea. It was incredible. Anyway, that was my little interlude story to bridge the time. But yeah, that's so cool. That's the kind of special thing that you can encounter very easily in Juneau, which is, a lot of times, especially with cruise visitors. And I think Juneau's predominantly cruise visitors in the summer. What's your ratio?
I don't know exactly what the ratio is, but I think it's probably 5/6 of our.
Yeah, it's high. It is so most people, if you're watching this, you're probably going to be visiting by cruise. Maybe not, and then there's tons of things you can do and stay as long as you have time for. But if you are walking along the main boardwalk, the main cruise dock, everyone's like, there's locals. They're just right there, so you can have a local Alaskan experience right in reach, right? Handing you a cookie, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got some questions from the community. As a reminder for those of you watching, if you have other questions, post them in the comments. I'll make sure we get you an answer. But let's go to the ones that were already submitted. And I'm trying to think about what order to do these in. Okay. We'll start with this one. So I think this question probably requires a little bit of context, but Terry was asking about the flood, and I assume she's referring to the flood from the Mendenhall Glacial Lake. And then just kind of if you can give us an update, is there anything relevant for visitors? Basically, that's probably the best information we can get.
Yeah, there are a lot of there's a lot of information around this, and it's up for discussion for a lot of us because, as you may know, this has been going on. The glacial outburst dam flooding has been going on since 2011, but it's just never been so high as to have affected us much more than maybe closing down Photo Point or the trail to Nugget Falls or something like that for a brief period of time, usually a matter of days. But there is, there has been wider flooding now, of course, with climate change, depending on amount of rain, the snow melt, the glacial melt, all of that together. It's coming at least once a year, usually more than once. But the levels were such the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, there was some rather spectacular footage that was captured of like hundreds of feet of riverbank falling into the river, just from the sheer force of what did they say, 33 million gallons of water rushing out. I mean, it's like a tremendous amount. I may not be accurate on that, but a tremendous amount of water that had built up in this basin and then found its way out all at once. And so that's usually takes place in the summertime. It was, I believe, at August that year. And then last year, they had shored up a lot of that riverbank there, and it had flooded. Up to 300 houses were flooded. And we only kind of expect that to potentially grow. I mean, that there's really no way. We're modeling it, we're researching it. There's no way, there's no immediate solution. It's also on Forest Service land, so that comes with its own set of complications if you want to try and do something to mitigate the impacts of that. The city is working on this issue. There's a lot of discussion around it. But it really, unless you're taking a rafting tour the day that the water decides to break out of the dam, or, immediately before, immediately after, right around in there, it's possible you could be impacted. I know that when the water comes with such force, oftentimes there are trees and branches that get swept out into the water. And so perhaps whale watching or fishing boats might have to be a little bit more careful when they're driving around to make sure that they're not dealing with the debris. And sometimes they'll be stopping to pick it up, especially if it's like right after. They'll stop and haul some of that stuff out on the way back so that they can help clear that, because it's a hazard, obviously. It's certainly possible for it to happen a couple times a year. I mean, we can pretty much expect it to happen annually from here on out, as far as we know. But we just don't. There's no crystal ball to say for sure when it's going to happen or how high it's going to be. We were at 16 feet plus flood stage last year, or this year. 15.99, but 16.
16, yeah. Wow. And it's worth noting, the flood is a natural process that glaciers do. Another good example, if you are doing your research about Alaska, is that Exit Glacier in the Seward area has had these outburst floods. And that's why you are no longer allowed to hike up the riverbed toward the face of that glacier, because you used to be able to do that. And it's very dangerous to be near the face of a glacier when these floods release from the face of the glacier. So it is certainly, it's something that from time immemorial, right? There would be stories of this happening on occasion. It's just happening a lot more frequently. But I appreciate the update. That's sort of the most that we can hope for, and hopefully it doesn't impact anyone's travel experience or anyone's homes, right? It's not just visitors who get impacted, of course. So thank you for that update.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one for you. And okay, I'm going to caveat this one because I get this question a lot from visitors, and you covered hiking trails, so thank you. I'll say, if you're Renee or you're someone else running, just scroll back like 5 to 7 minutes and you'll find the hiking trails that Kristi suggested. But I know that as working for Travel Juneau, you kind of represent everybody. So rather than having you recommend any specific place, can you point people to where on Travel Juneau's website they can find the restaurant information so they can figure out what they want to do?
There, and I would have to go there and actually look now, but there is in the guide, which this is this year's guide, but in the back and also throughout, there are some ads, but in the back, there's actually a listing of 2 pages or four, I guess it's 4 pages in this new guide. I just got done working on that. So 4 pages of restaurants. We have some amazing places to eat. I mean, I'm sorry, but when it's cold out or when you live around this much good seafood, we eat. And when we meet, we eat is what my friend says. So there are certainly plenty of places to go eat any type of food that you can imagine. There's some Mexican, Korean fusion. There's, homemade pasta and wood-fired oven pizzas, any manner of seafood you could possibly imagine. But that's all in the guide and of course on our website at traveljuneau.com. And, I would just encourage you to be adventurous and to try things like, I have to admit, here's a confession. I was not much of a fish eater when I first came here. But there is something about fresh seafood that is unlike anything that you're used to eating. This is not your mama's fish and chips. This is just astounding. And if you are fortunate to have friends or make friends while you're here with folks, when you're here for a little while, you sometimes get invited to dinner and they love to cook up some king salmon for you. Or my favorite is black cod. I will tell you the best place to go buy your own if you want to just do it at your place. Maybe you have a bed and breakfast or kitchenette someplace where you're staying. But certainly we have loads of restaurants that serve some amazing seafood in this town. So, it really just depends. You can always go to our visitor center and ask them for their favorites. A lot of those people have been working the information center for some of them 40 years.
Wow.
They just love sharing their love of this town with you. So, definitely pick their brain.
Yeah, that's what they're there for. And I can attest, I have a restaurant guide on my blog from my experiences in Juneau, which if you need recommendations, Renee, that'll get you pointing in a certain direction, but you can absolutely consult the full listings to see all of your options. You really can't go wrong in Juneau. Like, I don't think I've ever had a bad meal. I don't think it's possible, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I've got a couple other questions, but I want to be conscious of your time and of everyone watching. So here's one that I think is actually really interesting, because Juneau has, especially cruise excursions, but like you can do these even if you're not on a cruise. There are dog sledding tours that are on a glacier and not on a glacier. And I'm wondering if you can explain the differences so people kind of can get a sense if they're trying to decide between the two in the like brochure or whatever.
A lot of it kind of depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Some people really want that glacier experience, and you fly up on a helicopter and you land and you got your boots on and you're walking around and playing with the dogs and petting them, and then you get on a sled and mush the dogs and then fly down on the helicopter. It's spectacular. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. I've done it. But for some people that might be kind of out of reach of their budget. And so doing something on the ground is also way fun because they have the sleds basically on wheels. And so you have the same experience of the dogs and the puppies and the all that. It's just that you're not having to worry about traversing over a glacier or on ice or snow. So if you have somebody who, maybe that doesn't appeal to them, or maybe they're a little unsteady on their feet, then perhaps the ground tour might be better for them. But also like for families and stuff, when you've got a big group of people that are going and doing an activity, price, whether you like it or not, is sometimes plays a factor, but it gives you the opportunity to do something that's amazing that you wouldn't normally get to do somewhere. And I think both experiences bring something different to the table, and it just really depends on what it is that's important to you.
Yeah. And I will say a lot of people might be concerned that the dirt track runs are not real. That's actually how mushers train their dogs in the summer. So
Yes.
it is absolutely part of the annual cycle of training sled dogs is to have them run and pull carts and all that. So you are having just as authentic of an experience riding on the glacier in the snow as you are riding on the track in the cart. So you're not getting shorted on any level of authenticity in that way.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay, here's one more question, and then we will wrap up. This one comes from Margaret, and then I feel like this is a much bigger question, but if you can give us a sort of the quick version of where do you get started if you want to use Juneau as a base to go explore Glacier Bay National Park?
Gosh, there are a number of ways to get to Glacier Bay National Park, and Juneau is a great hub for that. And you can fly Alaska Airlines out of Juneau to Glacier Bay. You can take a water taxi. You can take a day cruise. I day cruised out to Glacier Bay for the first time this last summer, and and it was just heart-stoppingly gorgeous, and more bubble feeding whales than I've ever seen in my life. It was just stunning. I've also been just out to Gustavus and stayed out there, and then you can take excursions from there. So you can fly out to Gustavus, you can take Alaska seaplanes, you can hire a float plane. There are just so many ways to get out there, and it's just a matter of what you want that experience to be. How far out do you want to get? Maybe you want to go kayaking. There are certainly people that go out there and float around in their kayaks and paddle everywhere. I would encourage all of your viewers to consider just calling our office. I mean, we got people that love to talk about Juneau, that our folks that answer the phone, they know everything there is to know. And if they don't know, they'll find out and they'll call you back. So there's certainly plenty of information out there that we can help you kind of customize your trip. If you are having trouble deciding exactly how to get from point A to point B, we're happy to do that and help you find your way.
Yeah, amazing. And that's great advice for all of your Alaska travel planning is that, first of all, I have this seminar series, so we're going to kind of wrap things up. So go watch the other videos. And then wherever you decide you want to go, pick up the phone and call, because when you're calling, Travel Juneau or any of the destinations, those are real Alaskans. They're people who are passionate about the place that they call home, both the state and the communities that they live in, and the opportunities that you can have there. So absolutely endorse that. I'm like the one millennial who loves the phone because I think it's such an interesting and compelling way to get information. You could certainly send an email, you can reach out via the website, but the phone is really like, you'll hear the enthusiasm of a local Juneau resident telling you the things that they recommend when you give them a call. So anyway, gonna wrap it up. Last call for questions. If you have them, put them in the comments below. I'll make sure you get an answer. Even if you're visiting in 26 or 27, though, by then you might want to go check my profile because I'll probably have an updated video with Kristi, because there's always new things happening and I love to have these videos every year. The other thing I want to point out is in the caption, you will find the links to Travel Juneau, some of the more resources, their social media platforms. You will also find some links to the blog posts that I have about Juneau, which are just based on my own experiences traveling and exploring and eating and having a great time. So that will get you started. And then you can pick up the phone and call if you have any more questions. With that, I will just say once more, thank you so much, Kristi, for joining me and telling us all about Juneau.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And we sure hope to welcome a lot of y'all up here.